Alright, welcome to the quadratic station. We've learned a lot about quadratics, so it might be a lot to remember. The first thing is the shape of a quadratic is called a parabola, right? So that's our U shape. So if our U is opening down, that means our vertex is going to be on top, and it's going to be a maximum. And if our U shape opens up, our vertex is going to be on the bottom, and it's going to be a minimum, right? So this is called our concavity. And then an easy way to know this is that if A is positive, it's going to open up, right? Maybe I should actually write the word positive. So if A is positive, it's going to open up. And if A is negative, it's going to open down. Sorry, y'all, it's sloppy, but you know what I'm trying to say. Okay? So this is positive and negative. Negative opens down, positive opens up. Alright, so the standard form for a quadratic is, I'm trying to get this to work. Bear with me. Alright, whatever. We're just going to put everything on top. Alright, so the standard form for a quadratic is y equals ax squared plus bx plus c. Okay? So c is always your y-intercept. So that's where it's going to cross the y-axis. Then if you're actually writing it as a point, it's going to be 0, and then wherever it crosses your y-axis, right? So your x value there is always going to be 0, and then your y is going to be whatever c is. Okay? Solving. So if we're trying to find roots, solutions, or zeros, they are all the same thing, and that means where the parabola crosses the x-axis. You're going to find them, you can do two things. One is factoring the regular way, or you have to use the quadratic formula. So when your a value equals 1, you're going to factor regularly, but when your a value is greater than 1, you're going to use the quadratic formula. Okay? Also, whenever you need to find a minimum or maximum, that's going to be vertex formula. Okay? And I'll write these formulas up real quick. So for vertex, you just have x equals negative b over 2a, and your quadratic formula is x equals negative b plus or minus square root of b squared minus 4ac all over 2a. Okay? For your vertex formula, you need to find x and then plug in x to find y. Okay? Anything else you need to remember? This should be about it. The main thing is just going to be knowing what to use for which problem. So we're going to do a couple guided practices. Okay? I don't know why there's a whole blank page. Just bear with me. So typically whenever you have to find area or volume, you're going to just be multiplying and distributing. So I'll show you how to distribute, and then the acronym you can use to help you remember. So this question says a box has the dimensions shown in the diagram. So one side is x plus 5, another side is 2, and another side is x minus 1. It says which expression represents the volume of the box. So for volume, we're just multiplying base times width times height. So I need to multiply all three of these things together. Okay, so I'm going to use parentheses to separate them, and I'm just going to put them all together as multiplication. I'm going to put my coefficient up front. So this would end up being my a value. Okay, so it's going to go up front, and then times x plus 5 times x minus 1. So when we're distributing, just remember, that is sloppy, FOIL, okay? Whenever you're distributing, these are called binomials. Whenever you have to multiply these things together, you're going to FOIL, right? So F stands for first, O stands for outer, I stands for inner, and L stands for last. Okay? So this means first I'm multiplying the first two numbers. So I'm going to multiply x times x, and that gives me x squared. I'm going to keep this 2 out here. Next I'm going to multiply x, my outer, so x times negative 1, which gives me negative 1x. Then I'm going to multiply my inner, which is positive 5 times x, which gives me plus 5x. And then I'm going to multiply the ones in the last spot. So that's, oh, you can't see that. Positive 5, I'll underline it. Positive 5 times negative 1, which is going to be negative 5. Okay? Then I need to look in here and combine like terms. So keep your 2 out front. You haven't used that yet. I only have one x squared, so I'm just going to bring that down. I have 2 terms with just x, so I can combine these. So negative 1x plus 5x is going to be plus 4x, and then I only have one number by itself, so I'm going to bring that down. And last, so now this is regular distribution. So I'm just distributing this 2 to everything inside. So 2 times x squared would be 2x squared. 2 times 4x would be positive 8x. And 2 times negative 5 would be negative 10. So your answer is just going to be exactly what you have here, which should be D. Okay? So just remember, volume is multiplying all your dimensions together, and area, say this was just a rectangle, would just be length times width, right? But you would still need to end up doing that distribution. Let's look at this one. The function s equals m squared plus 6m plus 8 models the growth of the book sales in months. So months is our x, okay? Where s is an amount in thousands of dollars. And how many months, so we're trying to find months, so we're trying to find x, do book sales reach $80,000? So I want to know what is x when s equals 80,000, but just 80, okay? So I'm just going to rewrite my equation with 80 for s. So I have 80 equals m squared plus 6m plus 8. So really, we're solving for x. So all we need to do is factor this. But before we can factor, I need to get everything on one side. So this 80 is on a different side. I need to move it with everyone else, right? So if this is a positive 80, I need to do the opposite. So I need to subtract 80 from both sides. This cancels out. So I have 0 equals m squared plus 6m. And then what's 8 minus 80? It should be like negative 72, right? And my a value here is just 1 because there's no number in front. So I'm just going to factor this the regular way. So I need to find what are all my factors of 72. And then I'm going to want to find one that subtracts to give me 6. Okay? So I know I'm going to have 1 and 72. Then I'm going to have 2 and 36. Then I'm going to have 3 and 24. Then 4 and 18. I know 5 is not going to work because it doesn't end in 0 or 5. Then I have 6 and 12. I'm going to stop here because I know 6 minus 12 is going to give me my middle number, which is 6. So now in my parentheses, I'm putting m in first spot, my numbers in the second spot, and then my first sign is going to go with my bigger number, so I know this 12 is going to be plus, and a positive times a negative is a negative, so the 6 will be negative. But now I need to flip my signs. So if this is a negative 6, it's going to be positive 6, and if this is a positive 12, it's going to be negative 12. And I'm talking about time here, so I can never have negative time, so I'm not going to choose this 12, so my answer would be 6. So your answer would be A. Okay? A couple more examples. So this one was kind of like one of the first ones we did, except we need to substitute in these values. So you can pause it and read it. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to just keep going. It says the area can be found by using this formula. So I'm just going to substitute B1 or H in for B1 and H plus 12 in for B2. So I'm just going to rewrite my equation. So I have 1/2 times H equals, I'm substituting H for B1, so instead of B1 I'm putting H, plus, and I'm substituting H plus 12 in for B2, so I'm going to write H plus 12 instead of B2, right? So now I have 1/2 H, and now in my parentheses, both these H's I can combine. So H plus H would be 2H plus 12. And now I need to distribute. So what is 1/2 H, I'll circle this, times 2H, right? So 1/2 times 2 is going to be 1, and then H times H is going to be H squared. And then 1/2 H times 12, so 1/2 times 12 is going to be 6. So then I have plus 6H, right? And what I'm trying to figure out. The area is 16 square inches. So I know this is going to equal 16. Oh no. So I need to get everything on one side. So if this is a positive 16, I'm going to need to subtract 16 from both sides. This cancels out. I have nothing to combine 16 with on this side, so I'm just going to rewrite everything. So I have H2 plus 6, H minus 16. And now I'm just factoring this, right? So what are my factors? Sorry, this is an H. Of 16 that subtract to give me 6. So factors of 16, 1 and 16, 2 and 8. There it is right there. It's going to be 2 and 8. So my parentheses, I have H in both spots, a 2, and 8. Now my first sign goes to my biggest number, so it's going to be a positive 8. And a positive times a negative is a negative. Then I flip my signs. I can't have a negative length, so my answer is going to have to be the positive one, so that would be 2. Okay, so you're just setting up your equation, and then really it's just you're either going to be factoring, quadratic formula, or vertex, right? Now this one, quadratic formula is used to solve. All you need to do is figure out what number is supposed to be underneath of that square root sign, right? So my A is 1, my B is 3, and my C is negative 1. So I'm just plugging them in. Negative B plus or minus square root of B squared, so 3 squared, minus 4 times A times C. I'm just trying to figure out just what this is, so I'm not even going to write the rest. So 3 squared is 9, minus, oh, well, I'll wait for that. So negative 4 times 1 times negative 1 is just going to be, what, positive 4, and 9 plus 4 is 13. That's all I'm looking for. So my answer would be D. So you just pay attention to what you're actually doing so that you're not doing too much work, right? And that was the last one. Alright, so you have some time questions. Use the link in the Google Classroom to time yourself, and then just solve the problem. Take your time, but just be mindful of how much time you're using for each problem, right? If it's asking the ground, remember ground equals x, so you're just factoring a quadratic formula. You're going to need to set it equal to 20, and then move everything to one side, just walking you through a little bit. Pay attention. Remember what your A value tells you and what your C value tells you. Okay? Once you get down here, I want some explanation. So why are you eliminating, and how do you know your answer is right?